What's up, everyone, and welcome to the first edition of Crosstown On Tap. My name is Cody. You can follow me on Twitter at Cody On Tap. I'm joined with my good friend Tony. You can follow him on Twitter at Tony On Tap. Tony, what's up, man? How's it going?
It's going, Cody. It's going. We are game one of the World Series. From seeing both of our teams play actual baseball. Although my team did make it a little bit farther than you, and I'll bring that up 100 times today. But we made it like 2-3 weeks here without our teams playing baseball before we wanted to talk more. So that's why we're here. I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Yeah, man. I'm good. I already love your little little talk at me about the jabs. Thank you. I couldn't think of the word. I couldn't think of the word, but I appreciate it. Again, I didn't finish out our little intro there, but make sure to go to ontapsportsnet.com and get all your Chicago sports needs. And follow us on Twitter. Follow On Tap at the regular channel at On Tap Sportsnet. And also, if you're watching the stream or listening to us on podcast form, where I guess if you're watching the stream, make sure to go to our Facebook, YouTube page, because on Twitter, apparently, you still can't leave comments. Hopefully, Twitter will let us do that or let you guys do that someday. But until then, this is how we have to do it. Yeah, man.
Can't have nice things.
Can't have nice things yet. We had nice things and now we don't. It is what it is. I'm going to crack this Michelob Ultra and enjoy some baseball talk with you for the next, I don't know, hour, whatever. I don't know how long we're going to talk, but it's good to be talking baseball because I've missed it. As much as, the Cubs sucked this year, I still enjoyed watching all the way through. And I think that takes a special breed of type of people. I think that would include you because I know for a lot of years you had to watch the Sox, rebuild and stuff. And now the Cubs are kind of in that spot. And I know from talking to you, you were there through and through. All 162. And that's something that I really respect out of people, especially baseball fans, because there's so many games and so many people I know will be out on the baseball season after, a month or two, especially if the team doesn't have any expectations. So, I think this show, Crosstown On Tap, I think that's from the very beginning, I think that's the one thing that we both have in common for sure.
I can agree with you there, Cody. And I was going to ask you that question, like somewhere in this episode, how excited are you for next year? It does. It takes a special breed of person. I'd say, everybody that's involved with, Sox on Tap and Cubs on Tap, we're at that point where it's, if you've got a bad team, we're still watching, I'd say 99% of these games. And that's, it does. It takes somebody who's sickly addicted to the game of baseball and their team in order to carry that out. And I'm not trying to gatekeep fans or do any of that shit. It's just more or less there are people who essentially live that fever pitch style life where, March rolls around and no matter how the projections look, you're excited and you're ready for this year. And that's kind of how I live my life too, Cody, a little bit. Is revolves around the White Sox to an extent. And I think that you're the same way with the Cubs. But, it was great, man. We got to watch a couple more games than you did this year, and we're probably going to get to watch a couple more next year, hopefully. Knock on some wood that we have a baseball season next year. We'll talk about that too. But, it was a fun year to be a White Sox fan. And I hope it was just as fun for you, at least up until the trade deadline, Cody.
This has kind of been like my thing, and I've said this on Cubs on Tap. If you don't follow, we are streaming from the Twitter account right now. Go follow them on at Cubbies on Tap. But a lot of what I had to say in like the second half of the year was, you had to find ways to entertain yourself with the Cubs. You had to get excited about guys who you'd never heard of. You had to, I don't know, you just had to find a way to at least find some sort of optimism. I think it was like the end of August going into September, the Cubs had like a 7-game winning streak. And I was acting like it was like we were freaking back. And it was mainly because I was just excited that like, hey, like people thought that after the trade deadline and the Cubs went on like they proceeded to lose like they had another 11-game losing streak, and they won like 5 games in the month of August or something
How
like
much
that.
money did you lose betting on them during that time? Like, you don't have to
I
give an
didn't lose.
exact you don't have to give an exact answer, but were you like betting them out of the streak? What were you doing? Because I know you're a big betting guy.
I definitely wasn't betting them, man. If anything, if is I like to believe that I'm a smart better. If anything, I was going to bet against them because just watching them, they were just getting like the players were just getting acclimated with being around each other because none of them knew who they were. You know, there was only 4 guys left from the 2016 team on the roster after the trade deadline, and all that stuff. But you know what I was going into saying was, you know, at the end of August, going September, the Cubs won 7 games in a row. And, you know, it was just kind of like, not only was it just nice, but like you saw some like young guys that, you know, the prospect guys have been talking about that, you know, they're not the highest touted guys, but they are guys who knows, maybe they could be part of the team next year. And it gives you a little bit of an outlook because there are so many people after the trade deadline where they're like, no one on this Cubs roster is going to be on the team next year. And then, but as the second half played out, the offense actually played better than it did in the first half. Now you can take that for what it is with, you know, maybe the schedule or the fact that, you know, maybe teams just didn't care as much against the Cubs because it was all, you know, they were the Cubs and they didn't have any players left. I don't know. Baseball is baseball, but their offense did play better without all those guys that they traded away. And I feel like Cubs fans at least should take some solace in that, knowing that, hey, things aren't nearly as bad as maybe what the national media said, or even Chicago radio or media or whatever. So and that, again, that's more of an optimistic outlook. And I'm not saying the Cubs are going to go win the World Series next year, but I do think they'll be a more formidable team next year, as long as they, you know, actually get involved in free agency, because, you know, for the last 3 years, they really haven't been. And payroll and everything and had to do with that.
You've got some money on the books, and here's where I'll ask you something, because you bring up some stuff about, you know, appreciating where you're at in the rebuild and watching this team go. Before we get like too heavy into some of the details and stuff, the one thing that is a stark contrast for me, just as a White Sox fan, is I really don't know who you guys went out and got. Like for me, when the White Sox traded Chris Sale, and you've got Yohan Moncada and Michael Kopech coming back in the return. Or you trade Adam Eaton and you get Lucas Giolito. And you can look at these guys and say, wow, I'm excited about this. Are you, as a Cubs fan right now, like when you went through this trade deadline, are you now excited about some of those guys? And I don't know. I guess I'm not knowledgeable on the subject. I feel like the rebuilds were a little bit different in a sense that when the Sox tore it down, Hahn got some really top tier talent. And
right.
I'm not gonna say that Nick Madrigal in the Craig Kimbrell trade, because I'm sure we're gonna debate this one at some point this winter. I'm not saying that Nick Madrigal isn't top tier talent. I've got my question marks about him, but like, who are you excited about for next year? Like, is that the name? Is it Nick Madrigal?
I am excited about Nick Madrigal, man. And, you know, the reason being is Nick Madrigal is exactly the type of hitter that the Cubs have been missing the last like 2 years. Hell, even 3 years, if you go back to certain parts of 2018, more so the end of 2018. And I didn't like tweet this all the time, but there were, or I don't even know if I tweeted at all, but there were many times when the Sox were in the playoffs this year, or in that first series, where I felt like a guy like Nick Madrigal would have been a nice hitter to have in the lineup just based off his approach. I don't know if he would have, hit 300 in the series like he has his entire career, but I do like his approach, and that's his approach is contact hitter, get on base, hits to all fields. At least like that's what I've read up on him. And maybe sometimes he can hit one out of the park, but I don't think the Cubs got him.
You'll be lucky. You'll be lucky. I think the basket might help him a little bit.
The wind at Wrigley,
the wind in the basket. I mean, I think he'll hit more home runs there than he would have on the south side. But right. I mean, that's why it's hard for me, man. Like, I'm looking at your situation here, like, honestly, from a Sox fan perspective, and I'm going, you didn't get like a huge headliner name who's like a prospect guy. I mean, Madrigal's got some major league experience in him already. I mean, he's seen parts of a COVID shortened season and parts of this season. Again, riddled with some injuries and stuff. You're sure there's a fuck ton of upside there, but
Yeah.
like, I'm not gonna deny that there's some upside there. But at least as a White Sox fan, right before he got injured was right when he started to grow on me a little bit. But everything else right there, he's been polarizing, at least on our side of the deal, where I'm like, you guys didn't get a Yohan Moncada or an Eloy Jimenez. I didn't even bring that up. I was sparing you the memories of that. But I just feel like you guys didn't walk away with one of those. So when you talk about free agency, how the fuck do you get back into this thing if you don't go spend, if you're the Ricketts right there?
Well, my thing, what's different to me with the Kimbrel trade is the Cubs got two guys who were already at the major league level. And when the Quintana trade went down, we didn't know what Eloy was going to be. I mean, he had, even in the Cubs system, he had spent time being hurt. And then as soon as the Cubs make that trade, that's when you start seeing videos of him taking out ballpark lights and stuff, mashing homers down in the minors, which just, I remember seeing it for the first time, was like, yeah, of course that would happen. And then the same thing with Cease. He was coming off Tommy John surgery. And I'm not justifying it. I've gone back and forth with that Quintana trade many times. I'm at the point right now where I feel like I do think the Sox win the trade, but at the same time, it could have been a lot worse in the Cubs' favor if Quintana just didn't perform, kind of like how Kimbrel didn't perform for the White Sox. Quintana, I always thought, just kind of got a bad rap because the Cubs traded for him and they expected to get, top of the rotation type outings out of him. And they got it sometimes. The one Quintana outing I always remember is his very first one as a Cub against Baltimore in 2017. He threw like 7 innings and had like double-digit strikeouts, I'm pretty sure. And I was on the train of like, here we go. We're going back to the World Series. And I think he had a really good start in the postseason that year against the Nationals. And I'm not even sure if the Cubs make the postseason in 2017 if they don't have Quintana. Because going into the All-Star break that year, they were like a fringe 500 team. They had really dropped off compared to what 16 was. So, I mean, that is what it is. But I guess the difference between the two trades, outside of what I just said, is in the Cubs standpoint, they're getting a reliever who they believe is back of the bullpen type stuff. And with
I can confirm for you right now that Cody Hoyer's back in the bullpen type stuff. I mean, he was one of Johnny Nani's, my Sox on Tap co-host. He was one of his favorite pitchers. He was a lot of people's favorite pitchers in the back end of that bullpen. I should say Jace Fry is probably up there on Johnny's list too. But Cody Hoyer he's got some movement on that fastball. He's a young kid. There's a lot of upside there. High velocity guy. I was sad to see him go in that deal. I won't lie. It's very, very hard for me to see Cody Hoyer on the other side of town. But at the same point, I guess what you're getting at kind of is that, you guys got some major league ready talent versus stuff that's going to take 2 or 3 years to develop.
And that's why I've literally like gotten arguments with people on Cubs Twitter saying that it's going to take 5 years for the Cubs to get back to like anything. And
I'm not going to justify it, Cody. I'm just going to turn around and say that I don't think there's enough talent there unless you guys go out and sign anybody. And that's
true.
In the same fucking spot.
And I was getting to that. All I'm saying is like with the talent that they did get back at the trade deadline, they are lined up potentially to be, contenders in the National League. At least in the National League NLCS in 2023, 2024 time. I do think if they do things in free agency this offseason, they could be at least in the division race next year. But again, that's that. But, I just think I think Nick Madrigal just hasn't had a lot of major league time for people to really say, oh, he's this, oh, he's that. I remember when the trade went down and what's their names? Our friend Herb Lawrence and Lawrence Holmes. They like broke the news on 670 The Score, and I seen the video a few times on Twitter or Facebook, whatever, I can't remember, but they called Nick Madrigal, like they were like, he's so Ryan Theriot, and in a way I get it, like second baseman, small guy, like I get it, like I totally get it, but a guy like I feel like a guy like with the tools that Nick Madrigal has, if you have a guy like that, kind of sets the tone for your big hitters. And it's just like, I felt like, at least as a Cubs fan, it felt like the last 3 years, we just had a bunch of guys who were all the same in the lineup. You got to be able to diversify the lineup. I feel like you might be able to agree with me a little bit there. I listened to a couple of on taps.
We can go down that. And I think that that's something that even White Sox Twitter's been having issues with on the south side here is the White Sox are stacked on, DH, first base, third base, corner guys with power bats. And I think, though, that the difference there is that I think Tim Anderson kind of breaks that mold a little bit for them. He's a guy that's going to consistently hit 300. He can set the table. He can set the tone. In fact, that's exactly what people love about Tim Anderson. I don't think Nick Madrigal would have been redundant in the lineup, but I do know one thing about the White Sox. For as powerful as they are, and for as much like just thump that they have in the lineup, they hit the ball on the ground all the fucking time, and it caused issues for them this year. I think that that's been said enough, as my guy NWI Steve likes to say, ball go far, team go far. There wasn't a whole lot of that, even though that's what your whole lineup was predicated on. Now, injuries aside, I still think it needs to be better next year. But I don't really look at the Cubs lineup from, I guess, the Cubs lineup, right? Like when I think of the Cubs, I still think of Chris Bryant and Anthony Rizzo and all these other guys who are on other teams. I know that's painful for you to hear, but that's what I think of when I think of the Cubs lineup. I didn't think that they were too one-dimensional. I think Chris Bryant still had a bat where he can go out there and do some things with it. Wilson Contreras, while a power hitter, still had some, like he could find some gaps. There were still things out there about that lineup that wasn't exactly completely one-dimensional. Now, looking at it now, I don't even know who's on your roster besides that Wisdom guy that I hate him. I don't
because
like
he destroyed you guys.
Yeah, that was not fun.
Year, right?
That guy can go.
Well, when I say, like the lineup was all the same, they didn't have a lot of different guys, is they had a lot of guys who struck out a lot. And I believe the Cubs were in the bottom 5 in strikeout rate this year. Even after the deadline too, because we still struck out a ton, but I don't feel like we struck out nearly as much as we did in the first half of the year with all the other guys. And that's not to even put anything against Rizzo, Bryant, Baez, and all those guys. It's just, I felt like probably some of it had to do with pitchers just didn't know who some of these guys were. So there was some adjusting there probably, but one of the things in the second half of the season that I did like seeing was, in certain situations, I guess situational hitting was a lot better, I thought, in the second half. And there's been so many times where I've seen the Cubs have a guy on third base and, with less than 2 outs and then just not score. Like it will literally ruin.
That's a whole baseball thing. If I had $1 for every fucking time I watched the White Sox strand runners on second and third base with no outs this year, I'm sure that there's stats out there between the two teams. I just feel like in my situation, I watched it happen more than you did. So that's all I've got to say. But I think everybody has that. Like it's infuriating. For sure.
And strikeouts, I think this is one of the reasons why baseball is like trending down too, is, there's just so many more strikeouts in the game now because of launch angle and, analytics and all this shit. Plus also all the pitchers are throwing like triple digits now, which is insane to me. But, again, that's not a Cubs or Sox thing. That's more of a baseball thing. But I don't know. It just seemed like, especially, a lot of people might think I like really hated Javi Baez. I didn't hate Javi Baez at all. I loved Javi Baez. I just always, ever since the runner-up MVP,
we had an opportunity to agree on another thing, and you just blew right fucking by it.
I know. Sox fans hate Javi Baez, and I actually understand it from a sense because he's a very polarizing player, and he's a very,
Do Cubs fans hate Tim Anderson?
No, I don't think Cubs fans hate Tim Anderson. I'm
surprised by that. I want some more hatred this way. I want more hatred this way. Like, I feel like the rivalry is good for the city. That's just me. That's my take. I feel like the rivalry is good for the city. It's healthy.
We're getting into this here. I like this.
It's healthy. It's healthy to dislike the players on the other team. Like, you can respect them from a baseball standpoint. I liked Nomar Garciaparra. I thought Greg Maddux was a great player. But I still hated them when they played for the other team. And I think it's healthy for the city to have something to talk about, baseball being center stage, not many cities are set up for, two baseball teams and you to go to the office every day or talk to your friends or your neighbors or your family members who live around here and have differing opinions on which team is better and which one you
Right.
like. I think that it's better, and it creates more of an environment that's productive for baseball, for there to be hatred in the air.
I mean,
You talk about baseball being down. You go out there
Yeah.
next year and you have a bench clearing brawl between the two teams, just like we saw with the Sox in Detroit at the end of the year. Gets people fired up. People want to talk about it.
Get another Brzezinski and Michael Barrett situation
Yes.
going.
Yes. I think that's healthy for the game to have rivalry. I mean,
Yeah.
you look at it with football. You look at the Bears-Packers rivalry, like that thing thrives for years on end. It's thrived forever. I mean, even somewhat in Boston and New York. Like, let them hate each other. If I ever had the opportunity to be in the White Sox front office, I would take shots at the Cubs all fucking day just to try and provoke their fan base and stoke the media. I think it'd be hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, this is what I've always said about the Cubs Sox rivalry. I think it is a city thing. I think it's like, if you're from Chicago, Chicagoland, whatever, I think that, like, that's why I think those people are the people who get up for this rivalry. I'm always just gonna have more disdain for St. Louis, but when the Cubs play the White Sox, I don't want I don't want both teams to have fun. I want the White Sox to lose and I want the Cubs to win. I mean, for me, it is a little weird just because I did not grow up here and I really didn't. I mean, where I grew up, man, I was getting murdered every day by fans of St. Louis, their teams, go in the World Series in 2004, win the World Series after only winning 83 games in 2006. And then the randomness of David Freese in 2011 while the Cubs were about getting ready to tank. Like, I've had to hear enough from that fan base. Sox fans, though, it's like, for most of my life outside of 2005, both teams were pretty much the same. Like, I know 2008 they went to the playoffs. So the Cubs, we could have gone to the World Series and faced each other. You know what I mean? Now
I want to see that happen just once in my lifetime.
Right. I guess I would too. I mean,
although I don't know if I'd come out of it alive.
I don't know if I would either.
I don't know if I would personally come out of it alive. So I don't know if I really wish that upon it. Maybe the last year of my life. Right.
Yeah. Right. Or right before I knew I was going to move out of the city or something. I don't know.
Not even
just
that,
know that
I wouldn't ride the red line. An asteroid is coming for Earth. It's going to hit on November 5th. Let the Sox and the Cubs play in the World Series. That should just be what it is. Yeah. And, I mean, at that point, it's basically the purge.
Right. I definitely would not ride the red line home. I would probably, if I were to go to a game between those two in World Series, it would definitely be a home game at Wrigley Field since I live closer to there. And I would not be getting on the red line anywhere south of there. That's for damn sure, man. So
it's going to happen at some point. Obviously, it has happened in the past, and my White Sox came out on top. Now, granted, that was years and years and years and years before either of us were walking this planet. But overall, man, there's been opportunities for these teams to come out there and make deep runs. 2008, very, very real possibility that could have happened. We saw it just a couple of years ago. What was that, 2016, where both teams were at the top of their divisions and respective leagues at the end of, what was that, April, May-ish, in somewhere in there.
Early in the year, yeah.
Yeah, before everything in the South Side absolutely collapsed, and then we all know what happened. And I'm still here to talk about it, I guess, but it's never been the same since.
It's always good to go back and talk about those things whenever things are going good, though. You know what I mean? For you now, it's like, oh man, look how far we've come. Look how far we've grown, because I always do that when the Cubs, when Theo Epstein got hired, I knew we were going to be tanking for a good 3-4 years. And it's like, all right, I'm here now. This is I mean, I was always here, but now I'm they've reeled me into believing that we're finally going to build a winner because they went and got the guy who saved Boston, And then I watched it grow like it did, and they won. And then, I will quite literally be talking about it forever. I will. And then I'll probably be talking about the trade deadline with like my kids one day when I want to tell scary stories at Halloween. You know what I mean? Like the highs are the best parts to talk about, and the lows are like they're also kind of fun to talk about whenever you're back at your peak again, because it's like you just look back and you see how far you've come. And I think honestly, that's one of the best parts about being a fan.
When I get high, I like to think about those lows. It's absolutely,
I get that.
First thing on my list. I could just look down on them. But no, dude, I know what you're talking about. It's really funny though. When we get into this whole rivalry and how the teams have kind of gone through just their histories, there's always like these points in time, right? Where like the Cubs, you saw it. The White Sox kind of had like 2005 through 2008. It kind of toppled over. Now that they kind of crossed paths a little bit. You see the Cubs go in, 2013, 2014, 2015. Like you see that rebuild come, they peak. And then the Sox were like at their low point there and then build their way back up. And now you're watching that intersection happen once again.
Yeah.
So it's kind of wild that that's happened throughout the years. And despite whether teams are good or bad, talking about the Sox or the Cubs, whenever the Sox play the Cubs, whether you're getting them 6 times a year or 4 times a year, there's always like 1 or 2 really, really, really good games in there, despite how bad the teams are. And here's my point to this. And I've said this on Sox on Tap a ton of times, and this is just further backing my stance on the rivalry, is baseball is a business. You are competing for dollars and you are competing for eyes as much as you're competing for the World Series.
Yeah.
When you share a large market, which is possible, you see the Sox and Cubs do it. And I think that the Sox have done it less effectively than the Cubs have, at least over the course of my lifetime. I could admit that. There's more Cubs fans generally. And maybe that's changing. Maybe that's changing right now. And maybe that's
I won't lie to you. I've seen a lot of Sox hats in Wrigley these days.
I've seen a lot of Sox hats in places that I didn't used to see them before. But again, you go back to the casual baseball fan, and there's been debates all over the country on this topic.
For sure.
But I think, in a sense, if you're Jerry Reinsdorf or you're Tom Ricketts, you are literally competing in this city for the dollars that people spend and where they spend it. You're competing for that television market. There's a rivalry there, whether people want to admit it or not.
I've never not admitted that it doesn't exist. It's more of just like, I'm not someone who's going to go out of my way and just shit on the White Sox like I do St. Louis, just because I've just been brutally murdered more so by their fan base than Sox fans. And this isn't a shot at anyone. I just didn't know a lot. I didn't know any Sox fans growing up. I didn't meet really any Sox fans until I went to college. And that's when I got
this. Here we go.
I'm just saying, it's not a shot. It's just a fact for me, at least, but I'm with you. I do think it's healthy. I do think that what really needs to happen is both teams just have to be good, for a consistent amount.
We had that opportunity and you guys blew it up.
I
literally had that opportunity.
If
we want to start going,
there's a lot of freaking reasons for why we blew it up, man.
Absolutely.
I could sit here and talk about it for the next hour if you wanted me to.
It grinds my gears that you guys are going to go play in Iowa next year. I had to let that off my chest. It's fucking ridiculous. I mean, are you excited for the Field of Dreams game? I know this is episode 1 of this, and I hope that we can continue to do this over and over again, because this has actually been way more fun than I thought it was going to be. Not that I didn't think it was going to be fun, but I didn't realize how much I had to talk about. I don't know if you feel the same way. I didn't realize how much I had to talk about this whole thing. Are you excited for this Field of Dreams game that you guys are going to? Are you going to try and go? What's the general consensus amongst Cubs fans for being in the Field of Dreams game? Because I feel like as a Sox fan, I feel cheated that you guys are going next year.
I mean, I am excited. I love the movie, and after seeing the content that you and NWI Steve put out there, because you guys were at the game, I was like, man, this looks like a thing that MLB needs to keep around, because people tuned into that game, and then Tim Anderson was the icing on the cake at the end of that game, right? So, I mean, I don't know if the Cubs will be able, or the Cubs and the Reds are going to be able to top a game like that, but I do think that the reason the MLB is put the Cubs there is because it's
your minor league
people
team's right there.
that, and then also it's just there's just a lot of fans, man. Even I in like 2017 when the Cubs were on ESPN, it felt like ESPN Sunday Night Baseball literally like 20 times or whatever it was. Even I was over it because I can't stand the ESPN Sunday Night broadcast.
Oh,
and
Jesus.
so it's like, whenever like
you don't get up for listening to A-Rod?
No, I do not.
No?
I do not.
Okay.
I like Vaskurjan, and obviously I like Boog Shambi, but I can't. A-Rod just always ruined it for me. But I just think that that has to be the reason why they put the Cubs there, is just because it's just ratings and shit like that. But I also think the Cubs roster is going to look a lot different than what it is right now too. At least I'm holding out hope for it. But I do think that it will be. I do think it will be better than what many people expect.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to top the White Sox versus the Yankees. I don't. I think that that game was just too picturesque.
There would have to.
It was way too picturesque. It was way too picturesque. It was a movie. That's what Johnny and I liked. That night was a movie.
Right.
You couldn't script it better than what took place. You might have a ball game next year that's 12-2 in the third inning. Yeah, you might have a pitcher's duel that's goes into the ninth and there's no offense and no balls get hit into the corn, which was like part of the, if you want to call it a gimmick, I guess that's the gimmick right there, is that players can hit home runs into the corn outside of walking out of the corn. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to shit on the thing. I loved the experience. I'm a big fan of the movie, but that's the gimmick. If you're going to call it out, that's the gimmick, is the corn. But point being here, I think that MLB could have done a little bit better of a job with this. I thought maybe like, hey, it could be an annual White Sox game, considering they have ties to the movie. Or you make it kind of like a Tournament of Champions thing, and whoever wins gets that game next year. Put some extra onus on the organization to try and like put out your best product for that game in order to market the sport better. Right?
I like that.
Like, are the Cubs going to line up their number one pitcher to pitch in this game because it's prime time and you want to win, and there's financial implications for your franchise to win this game. So you put some extra pressure there, you build it up. To me, it's okay. Now they're going to throw the Cubs there. What comes next? Is it Minnesota versus
the Rays?
The Rays, yeah. Like, who's tuning into that 3 years down the road? I don't think that anybody's going to do that.
Right. See, a couple years ago, the Cubs were also in like what they called the little league game or whatever. Is right around they did that. Right, and they obviously didn't do it in the COVID year, and then I don't think they did it this year either.
I thought they did do it. I think the Little League World Series game, they had the Angels there. Forget who their opponent was. Yeah, it was wildly undermarketed.
I was gonna say I don't remember it, but
I think it was the Angels and the Braves. I'm gonna do a quick research here on it.
Yeah,
because I stumbled upon it.
Yeah,
Peabody's in here. It's going to be Boston and New York eventually. Yeah, it will.
Yeah,
it will.
People will watch that though.
People will tune into that, and they'll probably can they grow like a green monster of corn?
I grew up in what I like to call God's country, where there's nothing but small towns surrounded by corn. Corn does not grow that high, man. I promise you.
Well, I mean, I think they could probably build like another platform, put some soil on it, grow another row of corn, do the same thing over again.
Perhaps
put some seeds up there.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know.
People will tune in, and here's my last little bit on the whole Field of Dreams thing. From a baseball fan experience, and we talked about people who live like and die with their team, and how we both have tuned in through some really shitty baseball just because we love the teams, we love the sport.
Right.
From a baseball fan perspective, I felt like that was taking a trip basically to the Mecca, right? Like that was basically going to church. That was whatever your religion is. And baseball's kind of a religion for me. You show up to the game, you see people, you shake hands, you're with your community. It's kind of got that feeling on it, right? I don't know if you disagree with me. That's baseball to me. You show up to the ballpark, you watch your team play, you kind of do it religiously. It's a It's a passion. People joke about the baseball gods, all that good stuff.
Yep.
Going to the Field of Dreams, being there, walking through, the outfield of the movie set onto the campus of the major league field, all that was kind of like symbolic, I guess, of like, here's baseball heaven. Like, here's where like your dreams come true. Obviously for me as a White Sox fan, Tim Anderson made that happen. You got fireworks, you got everything going off. You got Sox fans going crazy. You got people in Iowa who've never seen a Major League Baseball game in their life watching this thing, taking it in. It was quiet. It felt like, and I remember them when I rewatched the broadcast and just getting texts from people. They're like, it's quiet there. People were very just tuned into the game, and it had just this old style feel of like, we're here, we're watching this take place. Like, I don't even need to cheer right now through the first few innings of this game. I remember Joe Buck going like crazy about it.
Yeah.
And everybody there is just so dialed in to what's going on and watching the beauty of the game. And I feel like I'm very baseball romantic right now.
Yeah,
but
I would agree.
That experience is what I'm trying to say. Like, it doesn't matter what team is there. Even if it loses all of the gimmickiness, even if it loses all of the, national coverage, I want that for other baseball fans. I want you to be able to go there and connect with the game in that way. I think it was marketed perfectly. I think it was done in a way where it was intimate. It was special. It had its moments there. A couple more concession stands. Concessions were fine. A couple more merchandise stands would have really helped the experience, because I missed about an inning and a half, 2 innings of the game standing in line for stuff.
That's the worst.
You want something from something like
that,
right? Like, you want something from something. So that's why I think that they could have done that just a little bit better. But like, you walk in and you're greeted to a free apple pie hot dog from Guy Fieri. Free. When's the last time you went to a baseball game and had anything given to you for free, like food or drink or beverage or whatever, free?
Literally never.
Never.
Yeah.
Like, and we talk about money grubbing in the MLB and all this other stuff. Free. Like, and then you get to have this experience that's part of a movie set. You go, you watch a baseball game that's just in its purest form, a bunch of dudes playing baseball in a cornfield. That experience I thought was great.
Yeah.
So if you get the chance to go. I'm still going to be mad about it as a White Sox fan. I'm like, I don't even know if I want to tune into this fucking game. I know I'm going to be rooting for the Cincinnati Reds because I want to see you guys lose, obviously, because I don't like you. But that's Field of Dreams. Yeah. I just think it was a good experience, whether you were a Yankees fan, a Sox fan, like the whole lead up to it, the couple hours that they gave people to essentially tailgate on the Field of Dreams, lots of different things that you can go do, experience, all that stuff. It was a good experience. I just don't know how you continue doing that and throwing the Cubs in there next year,
given the state of the restaurant.
Yeah. Not even given the state. I mean, at that time when it was kind of starting to leak. Well, no, it leaked out right after you guys made all those trades. True, but you have to know that stuff was in the works before they made those deals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and Theo probably helped you land that.
He probably did.
Theo helped you land that.
I'm sure Theo helped, but again, I do think the ratings thing has something to do with it, because again, how many times have just these big market teams, like how many times have the Angels been on freaking Sunday Night Baseball, even though they're never good? I feel like I see, especially always at the beginning of the year. They're not going to put them on at the end of the year, but it's always the beginning of the year. I feel like I see them on there like in the first couple months, a couple times, and I'm like, is it because Mike Trout's here? I mean, I guess that makes sense, but they're just never good.
This is what I love about this here is we get to talk like some MLB as a whole on this show.
Yeah.
And
no, it's nice. Yeah.
The Angels are just such a fucking weird organization, right? Like
they honestly piss me off because Mike Trout needs to be in the playoffs.
You went out and you spent all this money on Ohtani. You lock up Mike Trout, who had the opportunity to leave. Your boy Joe Maddon's over there. Why is he not like doing funny, funky stuff like we saw in Chicago? Like where is the like? I thought he was a mastermind at like getting the best out of people, and you just kind of see like this. I always thought he was good with like young
young teams. I don't really know enough about the Angels and like their farm system or anything like that. But I always felt like, because when he was in Tampa Bay, those teams were good because they were all young guys who no one ever heard of except for like Evan Longoria and I guess David Price and a few other guys. I mean, those guys were young then, but and obviously people know who they are now because they've played out their careers and have been very successful. But when they were in Tampa Bay, a lot of people didn't know who they were, right? And I feel like Joe Madden just kind of fit that, I guess, that narrative a little bit. Now coming to the Cubs, when he went to the Cubs, it was kind of like a, perfect fit because, again, young talent who he kind of just took pressure off them to perform and stuff. But then his gimmick started to wear off after they won and they all got older. So I think that's probably why he hasn't really done anything in Anaheim or Los Angeles, whatever you want to call it. And I mean, that is what it is. I've always thought Joe Madden's ability to utilize or to the ability to use his bullpen has never been good. So
does he still have his steakhouse?
No, his steakhouse or whatever, the restaurant he had in Wrigley, it was like closed down, like not even 2 months after he left the Cubs, which was just kind of symbolic.
What a bad business investment for Joe Madden right there.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It wasn't even in Wrigley that long either. It was only like, I don't even know if it was
a steakhouse. It was like a restaurant. Like
it was a restaurant. Yeah, it wasn't a steakhouse. It was definitely just some restaurant on the corner of.
I didn't know
Waveland
he did not
Clark.
make it. I didn't know he didn't get to like Ditka level, right? Like he was like Cafe Street.
Yeah,
Chicago coach.
I don't know though.
The Angels just bother me.
They do because they have so many good players, and you're like, they would be like, if you almost kind of wish they were in the Midwest or on the East Coast, so at least we could watch them at 7 p.m. instead of 10 p.m. And
that's just baseball scheduling.
Yeah,
stay up later, Cody. Sure. Stay up later. That's my only answer for you. If you want Mike Trout, stay up later.
I guess. I only like the only innings I watched of Seattle Mariners this year were like at the end of the year whenever like they were like on the brisk of making the playoffs. Like that, I mean, that was it. And I didn't even realize that they were really, really deep into the like in the chase until like September. Because
they weren't. They kind of came roaring back a little bit. I don't know how much AL baseball you watch, but Seattle Seattle had some rough stuff. They traded away some pieces. There was some questionable GM work that was done there where they could have probably been a little bit better. And, if I was
the Zoom call that their former GM went on or whatever, where he literally described how he's planned to not pay any of his players or whatever.
There was so much going on there. There was so much going on in Seattle. And the AL West and even the NL West is just, it's so interesting right now. News topic today, you want to talk about this one, Ozzie Guillen interviewing potentially with the San Diego Padres.
Yeah. Keeping the White Sox and the Padres, like, I guess,
oh my God,
conversation together. Like, I'm not trying to mention Fernando Tatis to you, but I mean, it is keeping it the top.
That's a real nice dig to take on this show. No, I'm over the Fernando Tatis thing. I hope that he continues to rot away in San Diego and they never make it anywhere. Because I will say he's kind of over it. I am.
Yeah,
he's injury prone. Nick Madrical's injury prone too, so have fun with that one. The thing about Ozzie Guillen going back to manage the San Diego Padres that bothers me too. It's the name that you didn't even throw out there, Manny Machado. You've got Fernando Tatis. You've got some names that could have been on the White Sox. Yeah, that kind of bothers me. But the thing that bothers me the most with Ozzie Guillen going there is that he's not going to be, if he does go there, he's not going to be on the post-game show. If he's not going to be my manager, I want him to be on the post-game show because the guy just as a baseball analyst or as a baseball mind, he's very entertaining, number one, but he just kind of tells it like
how it is,
like not even how it is, how he sees it. And he's a manager.
He's very open.
Yeah, he's open about things. I like that about him. He's going to call out the.
We don't have enough of that these days, right?
No,
that's why you like it.
You don't. You don't have a lot of people who are unafraid to speak what the actual truth is. Like when the Yerman Mercedes thing was going down and people were trying to burn Tony La Russa at the stake. You've got Ozzie Guillen out there going, this is a rookie ball player who was 8 years old, in his first month, who had a good month, and he's going to, question this guy. Like, where's the authority here? Like, he kind of came out and was like, he didn't ruin him. If I was his manager, I would have done the same thing. Well, the difference there was kind of that, like, people support Ozzie now because he won a World Series for their team versus a guy who's in there that, whatever you may feel about the Tony La Russa hire, he hadn't done anything for the White Sox. So it's not a respected opinion. And I think that that's kind of a thing with coaches, right? Like if Joe Madden was available right now and David Ross said, I'm stepping away, I think Cubs fans would probably jump on the opportunity to have Joe Madden back a little bit, right? Am I wrong? There would be a vocal crowd who says, I want Joe Madden back.
There's still a crowd that is like mad that the Cubs, it's not, the Cubs didn't even fire him. They just didn't re-sign him. His contract was up and, they let him go. There's still fans that are mad that the Cubs brought in David Ross and didn't keep Madden around. I personally don't really understand it. I think that Joe Madden just kind of, his time just kind of came to an end, man. Like he didn't get his players up to play. He didn't hold the players to any kind of accountability. That was a problem. And that's something that David Ross has proven that he has, he's been able to do that. He was able to do that as a player. When they signed him, he was obviously a lot of it had to do with, his tenure with the organization and everything. But I am interested to see how he does moving forward now that really there's only 4 guys on the roster that he played with. I will say that I think he manages a bullpen better than Joe Madden. I'll say that much. And I think for managers, it comes down to, can you get your guys up to play and can you manage a bullpen? That to me, that's what it is when it comes to being a manager. I know the manager talk was a big thing for the White Sox this year, but
it was a huge topic. It was a huge topic. We'll do a whole episode on managers if you want to. We've got a whole winter to keep talking about this stuff. I feel like we're emptying some bullets.
We're kind of going all over the place.
We're starved for baseball talk, which is great. Which is absolutely
I remember
great.
Before we started, we were like, we're going to talk about how we became a fan and stuff like that. And we just
kind of do a whole nother episode on that one too. We do a whole nother episode. 47 minutes in. If you're still tuned into this, thank you. Number one, obviously,
thank you.
We've had a ton of good conversation so far. I've learned some stuff. I hope you've learned some stuff. Hope the listeners learned some stuff too. Just talking back and forth on some of the opinions and everything, but from a overall baseball standpoint, Cody, I've enjoyed this conversation, and I plan on continuing this through the offseason. We're going to try and get these things out there every other week, maybe every week, just depending on how much we want to talk baseball and how this works out for everybody and the schedules with everything. But I'm having a good time. I've got a few other topics here that I want to get into. I don't know about you.
Okay. Well, before we get to them, earlier I was talking about the Little League game that they do every year. Did we ever find out if we did have a game this year for it?
Yeah, I had something up here. The Little League, I believe it's called the Little League Classic.
Yes.
They play what is that, out in Williamsport or whatever?
Yeah, they play it in Pennsylvania somewhere. But
yeah, the Little League Classic this year. I'm on the Wikipedia page for it. It was the Cleveland Indians and the Los Angeles Angels this year. The Indians actually won that game 3-0. They had the worst attendance of any Little League Classic, and I'm just kind of guessing that was COVID related. Only 1,832 were in attendance for that ball game, which Cody, the top attendance there was 2,596. So you're talking on a couple hundred people that weren't in attendance for that. And if I compare that to the Field of Dreams game, I mean, you had 8,000. That felt intimate. I'm sure this felt even more from that aspect. But yeah, the Boston Red Sox and the Baltimore Orioles are scheduled to play next year's in 2022 if we have a season, knock on wood. And that'll be on August 21st. Yeah, Boston and Baltimore. But if you look at this one, the Cubs did play that in 2019. They beat the Pirates 7-1. that was in front of a crowd of 2,503 individuals.
Yeah. Well, whenever I brought it up earlier, because we were talking about the Field of Dreams game, the thing I was going to bring up related to I guess somewhat compare is they had new different jerseys, right? Like the Cubs had I have the jersey myself. I actually was able to get it at half price because they were selling them at the Cubs convention in the off season. But they obviously did the same thing with the Sox, right? Like I don't know, the Yankees jersey didn't look that much different than their regular jersey. So I don't know if they just wore their regular ones or what, but obviously the Sox had I really liked their pinstripe jersey they wore for that game. I think if you have things like that, I do think that helps, because for some reason, like for instance, the Pirates are terrible and their fans are, they're not supporting their team right now. They have one of the worst fan attendances in baseball, but their jersey fucks. I love their like the cursive writing on their home and away jersey that they have now. And honestly, if I was a Pittsburgh fan, I would probably just buy one that didn't have a name on the back.
Well, you've seen some of this with the NHL in the Winter Classic, right? In the Stadium Series that they've done. Some outdoor games where you create a jersey. You see the MLB kind of taking notes there. I know that some of the back end work for MLB and NHL are kind of the same, right? Like you've got shared media access, some of that stuff that works with the leagues in terms of, just the technologies that they've used. There's been some partnerships there. I think the NHL did a really good job with the first few iterations of the Winter Classic. The Blackhawks played in the first one at Wrigley Field. You're a Cubs fan, you know that one. That was back in 2009. And they've done it every year, and you get a different jersey iteration. They're kind of, at least in my mind, they're kind of trying to bring that to baseball. You've seen football kind of try and do that too. Like, let's play a game overseas. Let's do the retro jerseys. You've seen the NBA kind of do some of that stuff with like the City Connect stuff. And then you see the baseball kind of do that. These are just marketing opportunities for the teams. What bothered me a little bit too, though, about the White Sox, and you talk about it, like they played in the Field of Dreams game and they wore the 1919s. They wore the pinstripe jerseys that you saw in the old days. I would have loved to have seen them like come back the next day and use those jerseys again, and maybe one other time this season.
Yeah.
This year with the City Connect jerseys that MLB did, I know you've got the Wrigleyville one. I love what Yasmani Grandal said online about the Cubs one. What was that, like a D? What did he say? D3.
He called it a D3 school. I don't know if you've noticed, but like every time I gone to Wrigley after he left that comment, every time I gone to a Cubs game, I just been posting a photo of where I'm sitting and just like saying like, not bad for a D3 school or some shit like that.
Hey,
I was surprised I didn't get people coming at me, calling me an idiot or something like that. I really am.
Hey, I thought they could have done better with the Wrigleyville jerseys. I'm not gonna lie. The Sox ones were great. They looked awesome aesthetically, but every time they played in them, they got their asses fucking kicked to the point where it was like we were standing in the parking lot before the blackout game, and we were doing a little Sox on Tap tailgate action. And I remember I was sitting there with NWI Steve from Sox on Tap, and Southpaw walked by, and he was wearing the black on black City Connect jerseys. And I'm like, are they wearing them? Or he's like, do you think they're going to wear those? I'm like, well, Southpaw's in it. He's normally in the same uniform the team's wearing during the game. Like, this is a fucking bad omen. Like, no, do not do this.
Yeah.
And it just left a weird feeling in the pit of my stomach, thinking like, could the White Sox on the blackout game potentially be wearing the jerseys that they've lost in every year? Not that the jerseys have anything to do with it. I'm a superstitious baseball guy.
Oh no, same.
I know there's some Cubs fans who are probably in here who've never heard me talk before. I am very fucking superstitious about everything when it comes to baseball. If I'm wearing a hoodie and sitting in a specific chair and the White Sox win that game, like I'm doing the same thing tomorrow. Like I'm going to throw that hoodie back on. I'm going to sit in the same chair. If certain members of my family are sitting in specific places, that's where we need to be in order to achieve maximum superstitiousness. If it's not working, I buy a new hat every year for the White Sox just to like wash away last season. As long as they, don't win the World Series, it's only happened one time in my life where I wore like the same hat 2 years in a row. I do all sorts of shit. So, for me on that superstitious level, like I'm right there. I am
I'm with you. I'm the same way.
Stuff. So don't wear the jersey you got your ass kicked in multiple times in a playoff game.
I wore one time. It was earlier in the year. The Cubs didn't play very well in April this year, and I went to a game. And before I went to the game, I tweeted a picture, and it was like my Starlin Castro jersey. Basically, me saying I was going to wear that, and I hadn't worn that to a game in a really long time. And I was like, this is going to snap like the offense, like it's going to fix the offense or whatever. Because at the time in April, especially in April, the Cubs offense really sucked. It was like, because not only the weather, but I don't know what was going on, but their offense was so bad in April. And that's all people were talking about. And I was like, me wearing this to the game is going to snap it like back, because even to this day, people still love Starlin Castro. He, had like the best walk-up song in Cubs history, whatever. But I feel like that's kind of a thing. Like what you're saying is just like having your own little isms that just make being a fan so fun, I guess. But yeah, no, continue. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good, man. That's really all I had on that topic. I wish that the White Sox wore that uniform once or twice more. It would have been, I think.
Yeah. The one from the Field of Dreams game.
Yeah, classic for the year, right? Like you saw in the NHL, you had, the Blackhawks kind of ride out after they played in Notre Dame. They rode out the black jerseys for a year or two afterwards. Like I feel like there's certain opportunities to do that. Yeah. Didn't see the Yankees go back to theirs. Didn't see the White Sox go back to theirs. It'll be interesting to see if the Cubs have a uniform change next year for that, or the Cincinnati Reds. Are they going back to their 1900, 1920-esque uniforms? Because there's no meaning there, right? Like for the Cubs, there's no meaning to go back to the Black Sox scandal era jerseys. Like, that's where I'd go back to the whole thing. You guys shouldn't be playing in that game. It should be the White Sox every year, and they should win that game. And I don't even care if it's fucking staged.
It should
be an automatic win for the White Sox every year, just on the free space on the bingo card.
A free space, right?
Free space on the bingo card.
What would really heighten the Cubs and White Sox rivalry is if the Cubs and White Sox played each other in that game every year.
Do it.
That would probably like my explanation again to why that I just don't get into it is because again, both teams just throughout most of our lives outside of a couple years, they've just never really been that great. I've never had to watch the White Sox win multiple World Series while my team sucks. You know what I mean? So
and see, as a White Sox fan right now, Cody, I wish that we had achieved the ultimate goal this year with Tony La Russa at the helm.
Especially with Tony La Russa at the helm,
I felt like, there was a lot of White Sox fans that weren't behind Tony La Russa this year. I felt like it was going to be like an extra kind of fuck you to the north side where it's like, okay, we had to watch Tony La Russa do this in St. Louis. Now we're going to watch him do this on the south side and win multiple World Series. Like I wanted that. I just wanted that as a White Sox fan. I don't blame you. I wanted that to be the thing.
That was the thing. That was like when it happened, that was like the first thing I thought of. I was like, oh no, like now this rivalry is really going to finally get to me. Like Tony La Russa, we've talked about this off air. Like a lot, like you said, a lot of Sox fans aren't a fan of him. I'm not a fan of him, but it's mainly just because he's just ruined my days so many times. You know what I mean? So when the Sox signed him, not only was I surprised, but I was also like, fuck, like this is not gonna go well for me at some point. And so and that's a whole, again, we can have a whole managers episode. But before we move to these topics that you said literally 10 minutes ago that we want to talk about, I do want to mention that the Cubs City Connect jerseys, they are growing on me. Now, when they first came out, this is the problem with the internet, man. When they got leaked on the internet, it was from your buddy White Sox Dave. All right. He posted a shitty, grainy picture of these jerseys. and they look great. And even when the Cubs released them, I wasn't really on board. I like the hat. I have the hat
Oh,
now.
the hat's fine. The hat was better than the socks.
And they have like some really cool T-shirts that are part of it. Like, and then I even bought a pair of the socks, even though I'd never wear them. But I just like I love the Chicago blue, like the baby blue color. Like I own a ton of that kind of shit. So that's that. But the jersey is starting to grow on me. But as far as the players, when they wear them, like they should just be ordered. All of them should be ordered to like wear the high socks. They should all wear high socks every single game that they wear those jerseys, because otherwise it's not great.
It should be baseball like standard to wear the high socks.
They just,
I feel like it should be like Garrett Crochet. Like I don't know what's going on with those pants, man. Even somewhat.
He's got to switch it up, right?
Like I'm not a fan of the guys that have the pants that go all the way down and like wrap around the back heel spike.
Yeah,
but I just never played that way, and that's just me, and it's superstition, and it goes back through all these high socks. It's baseball,
right? Rizzo would do that. Rizzo would do that too sometimes. Like he'd be slumping, going like on a 3 for 20 or some shit like that, and he'll just randomly put on the high socks. You know what I mean? And
sometimes that gets you out of the slump.
Right. Like
high socks, man. Like I saw Yohan Moncada do it this year too, a couple of games. And it was like you just look more like a baseball player with the high socks on. I don't know. That's my feeling on it. Some people might hate the high socks. I don't hate that look.
No, I don't hate. I love the look too. I think I'm with you. If there's anything that we'll definitely agree on for this entire show was high socks 162 for every season,
for every player, every player be required. Maybe not every.
They should just outlaw the long pants. Outlaw it.
Pitchers. I will go. I guess I commented on Garrett Crochet, so I'm going to be hypocritical already. I guess if you're a pitcher, I can understand that, because even for the amount of,
as long as you throw strikes, it's all right.
Yeah, as long as you're throwing strikes. Even for me as a superstitious baseball guy, like pitchers are very, very superstitious. And if you can't perform with the high socks, but like everybody on the infield should be in high socks, everybody in the outfield should be in high socks. The catcher, it doesn't really even matter. But for everybody else that's out there, throw the high socks on. For other topics, man, I know we've just crossed the hour mark, so I'm gonna try and speed this up a little bit. I know we wanted to talk about how we became fans of our teams and everything. Let's save that one. I think we can talk about that later on. Again, thank you if you've made it this far. I've had a really good time doing this. The last topic I really wanted to talk about, Cody, was more Sox centric a little bit. I'm going to be selfish here. How was it for you as a Cubs fan, seeing going through the rebuild that just kind of kicked off there for you guys? When you did have successful stretches throughout this year, you had some really down stretches throughout this year. As a White Sox fan, I'm still trying to find closure with my team this year. And I want your words to be harsh. I want them to be honest. I want them to be, don't coddle me at all. Like, don't coddle me. Like, what are your thoughts as a Cubs fan on the 2021 Chicago White Sox and how that ended? And just where the White Sox are at, because I like your baseball mind, but I want you as a Cubs fan, you can throw as much bias in there as you want. You can be as realistic as you want. I don't care. I'm opening up the floor for you. The end of the 2021 White Sox season, because they were obviously the most prominent team in Chicago baseball at the end of the season.
And there were a lot of like blue check marks I saw that were like high on them going into the postseason too.
Yes.
Excuse me. I think that for me, if I'm a Sox fan, I'm most upset with the starting pitching, because the starting pitching got you through the season. And I think that comes back to the off season before the season. Going into it, people were like, okay, the White Sox need another starter. They went and got Lance Lynn, who's honestly, he gave you a career season. And I believe it was a career season, which is great.
It was a great year.
He's also older, and I do like the contract extension because he is perfect on the South Side. He's so White Sox, it's sickening to me a little bit. But
I love hearing you say that. brings joy to me.
But I also feel like them not making a bigger splash. Now, hindsight's 2020 when it comes to guys like Trevor Bauer, that whole thing. But a guy like him, I guess. I can't think of a guy. I can't think of a guy off the top of my head, but like
if you're gonna go sit here and talk about the White Sox grabbing premier free agent talent or even in the trade deadline, like you're barking up the wrong tree because I've kind of accepted where we're at. Like I sat on a phone call just yesterday with NWI Steve about somebody saying out there in the ether, like, "Whoa, should the Sox go after Max Scherzer?" And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't think that's ever going to happen. But then you realize his age and you go, do you give him a third year and go, 3 years, 30 mil? Like, even though that's fucking ridiculous, but as long as it keeps Jerry Reinsdorf under $100 million, maybe they'll do it, even though they've got to eat it in the third year. And then you get to a point as a White Sox fan where you kind of rationalize that and go, that ain't fucking happening. Although you saw it with Liam Hendricks. You saw it with top-tier free agents, right?
Right.
Liam Hendricks is an example here. You gave an extra year on the deal. Yasmani Grandal, you didn't go over 100. Like they stopped short of where that next level is, and I think that's something that White Sox fans just kind of have grown accustomed to, and it kind of propels the stereotype of like the White Sox being cheap, right? Like the Jerry cheap thing.
And I never really understood it. Yeah.
You're a Bulls fan. There's been plenty of I think, I'm not trying to defend him here. There's been plenty of times where Jerry Reinsdorf has gone out there and got premier talent. He went out there and he signed Albert Bell. Like Michael Jordan was a thing. The core that he kept around with the Bulls. You've seen him go out and get Grandal, guys like Hendrick. He's there, but it also, like, there is a real concern within the White Sox fan base, Cody, that you're going down this path with, if they went out and they did, Bryce Harper or, the Trevor Bauer or Zach Wheeler or Manny Machado. Like we've had all these names come and go. The only one that I really want, and I hope Ron Luce is still tuned in right now, is Nick Castellanos, because it would just be that fantastic when Nick Castellanos gets like 78 mil to come to the South Side. And we'll have so much fun on the show. I can guarantee it.
That one would break me. Because I'm like with Ron, I need Nick Castellanos back in a Cubs uniform because it's an absolute travesty that the Cubs did not pay him. But the point that I'm trying to make though is like I just feel like I thought they did great at the trade deadline. You got Ryan Tepera, he was solid. He was actually better than Kimbrel. And you're expecting Kimbrel to be what he was in the first half. He wasn't. I mean, that's all hindsight's 2020. That's all things that I kind of talked about with Quintana. Like, you don't know what you for sure are going to get, but you went and you put yourself out there. Like, there are some teams who wouldn't do anything. So from a Cubs fan perspective, that's like Rick Hahn is, like the Bears guys say, putting his meat on the table and going to like try and put you over the top. Turns out I feel like the one thing was, I guess, maybe a starting pitcher, but you also didn't expect Carlos Rodon to, his arm to fall off at the end of the year.
I thought, like, this is weird, and I don't want to extend the show out like another 20 minutes, but I thought Carlos Rodon was ending up on the north side of Chicago this past offseason.
Oh, I wanted him too. I thought he was like, it was the perfect guy that the Cubs would go out and get, because the Cubs for the last 3 years have just been going out and signing these guys who were either hurt or like had a bad year and then they fix them or some shit like that. So I thought Carlos Rodon was going to be a Cub, and then to see him throw that almost perfect hit or perfect game, should have been a perfect game, whatever. And then just see him be really solid all season, was an all-star and all that. Now it's kind of like, fuck. I don't know how much the injury thing at the end of the year is going to affect his value in free agency, but either way, like,
he'll have some suitors,
right? Either way,
could be you guys,
perhaps. And
let's get to the CBA first. That was the other topic that I wanted to talk about, but I think we can do it better justice if we separate that and we just talk about it on another show, Cody. That was the only other topic that I really had. But
that should probably be the Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, Carlos Rodon had a great year for the White Sox. It was totally unexpected. He was a guy that so many of us wrote off. And, he kind of propelled this team for a little
He was
while.
non-tendered.
Yeah.
and then brought back,
It's insane. Like, just absolutely insane. It was the draft pick that you thought you had years ago that all of a sudden shows up and is ace material through most of the season. Like, there was times, and Buzz and I talked about it on the phone like 4 or 5 times towards the end of the year, like as we're going into this playoffs, and you're seeing Carlos Rodon going through these struggles. You've got Tony La Russa saying things to the media. You've got Carlos Rodon's camp saying things to the media about where he's at. The velocity's down. You can watch it. And then, like, I get into that game, the last game of the season for the White Sox. You see Carlos Rodon just crank it up, and you see the velocity come back. Like, one of the last text messages that I had from that game before everything went south after my boy Gavin Sheets. I'm surprised it's the first Gavin Sheets mention that I've had all podcast, Cody. Like, honestly, like, it takes a lot for me to get through a podcast without talking about Gavin Sheets. You're going to hear his name so many times. I don't even care if
he's easy guy to like.
He's just the greatest baseball player that's ever walked the face of this fucking earth.
Everyone likes a good power lefty.
Yes. His swing is just absolutely fantastic.
That's how I felt about Kyle Schwarber. Rip in peace.
He's another good name. But overall, like, outside of that, like, when I saw Carlos Rodon dial it up on that Tuesday after the rainout, I was like, we're good. We're golden. This is going to be fantastic. And I don't know how much all of this hurts his value going into the offseason, like you said, but he was just such a surprise for us. And you point out the starting pitching with this team. Like, it was way better than it was. It was way better in April than it was towards the end of the year. Like, that's kind of where, like,
but it's kind of those are the kinds of things, though, where it's like, well, if they would have gone and signed someone, and again, I know Jerry is Jerry, and you just don't think you're not going to get up and believing that he's going to spend, $30 million on a pitcher. But, like, that's what kind of brings it back to me, though, is like, you could have got all that as well as went and got, hell, Marcus Stroman, even though Marcus Stroman publicly said he wasn't going to go play for the White Sox if Tony La Russa was the manager, whatever. But maybe a bad example. Zach
Wheeler's your example.
Zach Wheeler, yes. Like that. When I think about the 16 Cubs, like, that team was built on depth, and like,
I think they thought they had it with Dallas Keuchel.
They probably did.
I think they thought they did. And
then he really fell apart. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, when they signed Keuchel, I kind of got like John Lester comparison with the Cubs when that happened.
Making a move to go for the play, and then, like, that guy doesn't even factor into your rotation.
Right.
I don't know
his contract not nearly as long, so I don't know. But
and here's the weird thing, like with Dallas Keuchel for me, is if you had a healthy Carlos Rodon, Lance Lynn, Lucas Giolito, there's your 1, 2, 3. You saw the year that Dylan Cease pitched. Did you need Dallas Keuchel even if he was fine throughout the year? Like, do you need him in a DS series when you have Carlos Rodon, Dylan Cease, Lucas Giolito, and Lance Lynn? Like,
I mean, even
if he had a 3.5 ERA and was still tossing a ton of ground balls, I think you're in a really weird spot if you're the White Sox and you've got to choose between Lance Lynn and Dallas Keuchel against the Houston Astros, because my baseball mind tells me I'm taking Dallas Keuchel there if he was in form.
If he was saying,
Lance Lynn, maybe you're in the bullpen for this series, we'll bring it back to you to start, but you can't really go and do that with your guy that you just signed a fucking multi-year extension with. You can't do that. You can't.
Right.
Lance Lynn's not that guy.
Right. I guess this could, you could also point at Dylan Cease's development has taken longer than maybe what Sox fans expect. He could be really good. I've seen him be really good, and I'm like, fuck, man, this is what hurts me about the Quintana trade is Dylan Cease more so than anything. I mean, Eloy's great. He's going to be great for a long time. But Dylan Cease is the guy who really kills me. When I see him put up a good start, that's what kills me, because when I've watched Eloy for most of his career so far, I know he got a little bit better defensively in the outfield, but as much as I've watched him, okay, either way,
Hey, I'm champion of the Eloy Jimenez should never play another game in the outfield club. Like,
I mean, I'm with you. I don't think he should either, because my point is like there was no way that the Cubs were going to be able to play him in the National League. So to me, like the big loss there is Dylan Cease, considering like their inability, the organization's inability to develop pitching over the last decade until within the last year or two.
Who's your left fielder right now?
Our left fielder right now is fuck, man. Well, I mean, he's not better than Eloy.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at, though. Is there's still a loss there. I want to point that out. I want to point that out.
We're missing the offense for sure. We're missing the offense. It's just more of like when the trade went down, they still had Schwarber, and they already had you already had questionable issues with him there. And at that time, you're just kind of like, all right, well, there's no way they're going to be able to play Schwarber and Eloy in the outfield, especially with Jason Hayward on the long-term contract that he's on. So it's, again, what hurts me the most is Cease, but also probably didn't need to give up both of them to get Quintana as well. So it's like that's where that entire trade has me teeter-tottering.
We'll be working this one out for years to come. I know
we will be.
We say that, we talked about it already. This trade will probably come up like a million fucking times.
I will say this, that I'm past like the grieving stage of it. I'm more so in the part where it's just
you're rationalizing.
It sucks no matter. Yeah, I'm rationalizing.
You're rationalizing this. And it's fantastic to watch.
I'm just kind of like, yes, I accept that this did not work out in the Cubs' favor because they didn't win a World Series. All right. And that's how I also feel the same way about the Kimbrel trade. If you guys pick up the option and you decide to trade him where you don't keep him, then I feel like if Nick Madrigal goes on to have a 10-year career with the Cubs, then the Cubs win that trade.
Play. I just love that he does the Toyota ads. I can't wait for more pictures of Nick Madrigal with what is that, like a RAV4. That's really gonna help you guys. I cannot fucking wait. That's all I've got, man. Like,
that's
honestly,
a good way to end this thing.
That's all I've got for right now. We could do this for like 6 hours, but nobody's gonna listen.
We just talked for an hour and 15 minutes about all the shit. So
tell everybody where they can find you and all your Cubs coverage. I'll handle this.
Yeah. So if for everyone listening, and you haven't ever listened to Cubs on Tap, where we do during in season, we do post game shows after every game. It's usually me and our buddy Ron Luce and Joe Maris and Juice and a couple other guys if we ever need the help. But you can follow us all over at Cubbies on Tap on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow me on Twitter at Cody on Tap. Very easy stuff to find. What about you, Tony?
Yep, the same thing on the south side of town at Sox on Tap. If you're a White Sox fan or one of those people that follows both baseball teams and follows Cody, and you're just learning about all this other stuff, you can find us at Sox on Tap and myself at Tony on Tap. We've got NWI Steve at Buzz on Tap. And at Nani Johnny, we do the Sox show, and we'll continue to do Sox-specific stuff throughout the offseason, as I'm sure you guys will be doing too, Cody. And we also do some post-game shows for every single Sox game, and we do what we like to call Sunday Fun Day over at Sox on Tap, where we'll do some extended coverage as well. Cody, this has been really fun. I think that we're gonna continue to do this. For as long as it goes, and hopefully for that's a long time. But I think we'll get some guests on here. We'll do some different stuff. Maybe we'll do an interactive episode too, where we do some questions and stuff. But I'll turn it to you. You had something to say here.
Well, I was gonna say, we can even get a little bit more interactive on here in season as well. Whenever both teams are playing, I don't know. That's a long time ahead, but the conversation here has been great. I'm looking forward to certain guests that we can bring on here and just talk about baseball, which is nice because I really haven't really been talking baseball with anyone, outside of just right here. Even with the World Series, happening tonight, it's
What do
been
we
tough.
got? I haven't even looked. Like, we've been doing this show.
Yeah,
I want to look at
last I
the
checked.
score.
Last I checked, the Braves were up 2-0, but that was literally an hour and 20 minutes ago. So,
Are you rooting for the Braves? Yeah, they're up
I am.
5-1 right now. It's the fourth.
Let's go. I think America's winning that one right there. I think
yes.
everyone outside of Texas is rooting for the Braves tonight and or in the series. I'm also rooting a little extra hard for Jack Peterson and Jorge Soler, but yeah, no, it's nice to be able to talk a little baseball on the north side and south side together civilly. I'm sure
we'll see. Yeah, this is going to
we'll see if that changes.
At some point. Yeah, well,
at some point we're going to be yelling at each other.
This is going to get heated at some point. I can't wait for it. As I said, the rivalry is healthy, Cody. I love it. I think that
I feel like at this point, after everything that I've explained, you're gonna like you might just say it. I don't know, but I feel like you're gonna like make it your goal to just get me to like loathe the White Sox as much as I loathe St. Louis.
Absolutely.
And you could try, man. You could really try. I just don't know. But I mean, again,
I like to take on the impossible goals. I want you to hate everything that's right here. That's the goal of this show. We'll get there. But I've enjoyed this conversation, Cody. I think it's been awesome. I love the opportunity to talk baseball anytime I can get it.
Sure.
And again, thank you to everybody who tuned into this. This is something new for us at On Tap Sportsnet. As Cody said, you can find us at On Tap Sportsnet on Twitter, ontapsportsnet.com on the web. We cover everything in Chicago sports right now. If you want some beer reviews, you want some beer news, it's there too. Some pop culture stuff, some random stuff, but we're on top of everything Chicago sports. Again, thank you for tuning into this one. I know this is a different style show. We're trying some new things. Cody and I want to talk more baseball. That's what we're going to do throughout this offseason and continue it through next year. I think that the banter back and forth, Cody, has been fantastic. I love the different viewpoints from each side of the city, and we'll continue to do that on Crosstown On Tap. That's all I've got, man. I normally close my shows down with White Sox forever, but I might do like a fuck the Cubs type thing to close it down. I don't know if you got any other words left. Go ahead and let everybody know what else you have to say, and we'll close this out before we get to an hour and a half.
No, man, you pretty much summed it all up. Thanks for everyone for tuning in, and make sure to follow us where everything we said. Keep tuning into this show. I think it's going to be a good one. Yeah, I don't really know what to say at the end because I don't want to say, fuck the White Sox just to give you that little bit.
Yeah,
like not yet.
I was just waiting. I was trying to bait you there. You're already on my shtick.
I ain't gonna do it, man. Not yet. You gotta at least. I have to give myself at least one episode. So
there you go. There you go. Well, I think that's it. Thank you for tuning in, Cody. Thank you for talking baseball with me for an hour and 20 minutes. We'll be back in a week or two. We'll keep you apprised of the schedule. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. Cody, it was great talking baseball with you. Fuck the Cubs. I don't like them. Go White Sox.